Good day, everyone! Today, we will be learning about self in the social world. By the way, my name is Erica P. Bautista, and I'll be covering topics from spotlight down to the development of social self. Let's have fun while learning. Self is one of the hardest things in this world. It's hard to define, but today, we will explore the influence of social world to the self, starting with spotlight and illusions. So, what it feels to be at the spotlight. Spotlight effect is the belief that others are paying more attention to one's appearance and behavior than they really are. From our self-focused perspective, we tend to overestimate how others see us because we see ourselves at the center stage where we get to think that all of people's attention is aimed at us. The way we dress, our hairstyle, and our overall appearance. And here comes the illusions. Illusions of transparency is the illusions that our concealed emotions leak out and can be easily read by others. What we are feeling can be noticed by how we appear to them. Research on being nervous about looking nervous by Kenneth Savitsky and Thomas Gelovich exposed the in-depth definition of illusions of transparency, where people overestimate the extent to which their internal states leak out or well show off. There are examples of interplay between sense of self and our social world. First, social surroundings affect our self-awareness, how we differ and how others reacting to our difference. Second, self-interest colors our social judgment. Third, self-concern motivates our social behavior. People adjust behavior according to what others are expecting, like the way we joke, the way we speak, depend on the expectation of others. Last, social relationships help define ourselves, different self with different people. Now, we take a look at self-concept. How accurately do we know ourselves? Self-concept is the answer of the question, who am I? The medial prefrontal cortex helps stitch together your sense of self. One element that makes up our self-concept is the self-schema. It is the belief about self that organize and guide the processing of self-relevant information. Our self-concept include not only our current situation, but also the future, what we want to become in the future. It's our possible selves. Our possible selves include our vision of our dream, and those vision motivates us to achieve what we want to become in the future. After knowing what makes our self-concept, now we will know what determines our self-concept. These are the influence on developing social self. First is the roles we play. In our first week here in CSU, being a college student is a new role we should play. We can initially feel self-conscious, but eventually we adjust to new environment, so college is now absorbed into the sense of self and it will become now as a reality. Second is social comparison. Social comparison is evaluating one's ability and opinion of comparing oneself with others, and it can really affect in molding self-concept because we compare ourselves to others and think they are better than us. Third, success and failure. Our self-concept can also be determined by our daily experiences. Achievements in class helps boosting our self-esteem. On the other hand, having with low self-esteem sometimes causes problems or worse, failure. Lastly, people's judgments. Well, others' judgments matter. If people say you did better, it helps you think you are good enough. It helps molding our self-concept.
My name is Badic, and I am going to tackle about self and culture and self-knowledge. Now, individualism is the concept of giving priority to one's own goals over group goals and defining one's identity in terms of personal attributes rather than group identification. Individual self, constituting one's identity as an autonomous self. Collectivism, giving priority to the goals of one's group, often one's extended family or work group, and defining one's identity accordingly. Interdependent self, constituting one's identity in relation to others. Our self-knowledge is curiously flawed. Dependent self acknowledges relationship with others, but the interdependent self is more deeply embedded in others. We often do not know why we behave the way we do. When influences upon our behavior are not conspicuous enough for any observer to notice, we too can miss them. The unconscious implicit process that control our behavior may differ from our conscious, explicit explanation of it. We also tend to mispredict our emotions. We underestimate the power of our psychological immune system, thus tend to overestimate the durability of our emotional reaction to significant events.
Hi guys, it's me Claire, and today I'm gonna talk about self-esteem and its subtopics, which are self-esteem motivation, the dark side of self-esteem, narcissism, as self-esteem's considered sister, narcissism under race, low versus secure self. What is self-esteem? Self-esteem is a person's overall evaluation or sense of self-worth. If we see ourselves as attractive, athletic, destined to be rich and loved, will we most likely to have a high self-esteem? According to Jennifer Crocker and Connie Wolf, yes, when we feel good about the domains that are important to ourselves, we feel confident. People who value themselves in a general way, those with high self-esteem, more likely to value their looks, ability, and so forth. However, specific self-perceptions do have some influence. When we say self-perception, it is an act where an individual develops their attitudes by observing their own behavior and conducting what attitudes must have caused it. For example, if you think you're good at math, you will be more likely to do well at math. Of course, each situation causes the other. So let's just simply put it like this. Doing well at math makes you think you're good at math, which then motivates you to do even better. So if you want to encourage someone or yourself, use specific praises instead of general. For example, you're good at math rather than you're great. Because feedback is best when it is true and specific. So for the next one is self-esteem motivation. So according to Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it states that motivation is our drive to do things. It's the element that keeps us moving towards our goals. It is essential and can go up and down depending on our self-control and other external circumstances that affects our actions, such as threat. Well, another Abraham Tesser, reported self-esteem maintenance. Self-esteem maintenance or self-esteem motivation is a model that concerns discrepancies between two people in a relationship which aims to keep themselves feeling good psychologically through a comparison process or the continuous process of determining personal growth or progress. Tesser presumes that people perceiving one of you is more capable than the other will likely to motivate the less able one to act in maintaining self-esteem. For example, in a sibling relationship, the threat to self-esteem in siblings is greatest for an older child with a highly capable younger sibling. Well, the self-esteem maintenance does not only happen in siblings, it also goes with married couples and friends. Another example is that you feel jealous with your friend's achievement, for he, she, or is doing way better than you. You may feel insecure and threatened. We may reduce the threat by affirming our relationship, saying that my capable friend who is very close to me is a part of who I am. People usually use reflective glory from other people to bolster their image, in order to reduce the anxiety that we might feel. So there is a question. What underlies the motive to maintain or enhance self-esteem? Mark Larry believes that our self-esteem or feelings are like a fuel gauge. Self-esteem gauge alerts us to threaten social rejection, motivating us to act with a greater sensitivity to others' expectations. Because we all know that social rejection might lower our self-esteem and make us more eager for seeking approval. For example, we feel unattractive or inadequate. The pain that we feel can motivate into action, either self-improvement or searching for acceptance and inclusion somewhere else. People desire self-esteem, which they are motivated to enhance. But inflated self-esteem also has a dark side. The next topic, I'll be talking about the dark side of self-esteem. People with low self-esteem often have problems in life, such as they make less money, abuses drugs, and depression. Well, on the other hand, high self-esteem does have some benefits. It fosters, it initiates, it is resilient, and gives pleasant feelings. We all know that narcissism is the pursuit of a gratification from a vanity of egoistic administration of one's idealized self-image and attribute. So let's talk about narcissism as self-esteem's conceited sister. High self-esteem becomes problematic if it does cross over into narcissism, or having an inflated sense of self. Most people with high self-esteem values both individual achievement and relationships. However, in narcissistic people, they have high self-esteem but lack social relationships. Due to this, the link between narcissism and problematic social relations had led to think that Diller Polhouse and Kevin Williams to include narcissism in the dark triad of negative personality traits, together with the Machiavellianism, which is manipulativeness, and the antisocial psychopathy. There is a question. What about the idea that an overinflated ego is just a cover-up for deep-seated insecurity? Do narcissistic people actually hate themselves deep down inside? Well, recent study shows no. People are having high measures of narcissistic personality traits also score on high self-esteem. Thus, narcissists are more outspoken, dominant, and assertive. Although, it might be comforting to think that the arrogant classmate is just covering up for his insecurity, chances are that deep down inside they think they're awesome. So it's a big no. So now let's talk about narcissism on the race. Psychologist Jean Twenge reports that today's young generation, or so she calls the Generation Me, expresses more narcissism by agreeing with statements such as, "If I rule the world, it would be a better place." And agreeing with these narcissistic items correlates with materialism, desires to be famous, and inflated expectations as its hidden desires. Now, let's talk about the low versus secure self-esteem. The findings linking a high positive self-concept with a negative behavior exist in tensions with people expressing low self-esteem, which are more vulnerable to assorted clinical problems such as anxieties, or being lonely, and depression. When we feel bad or threatened, low self-esteem peoples often take it as a negative view of everything. On the other hand, people with secure self-esteem, the one who is rooted more in feeling good of who he is or who she is than having good grades, looks, monies, or others' approval, is a conducive to learn well-being. People whose self-worth is more fragile experiences more stress, anger, relationship problems than those whose having a sense of self-worth is rooted more in internal sources such as personal virtues.
What is perceived self-control? It is the ability to control one's emotions, behavior, and desires in order to efficiently manage one's future. It serves as an executive function necessary for individual goal attainment. And we also have self-efficacy.
The sense that one is competent and effective, like how competent you feel on a task or having the confidence to know you can do whatever you set your mind to by managing how you think, feel, and behave. Having higher level of self-efficacy helps you get your thoughts, feelings, and emotions under control. It influences our motivation to give it a try or persevere when challenges encountered, while having lower level of self-efficacy tend to avoid doing tasks together, or they just give up quickly because they do not believe that they will be successful. One way to boost your self-efficacy is by having someone who gives you a good feedback, reminding you of your strengths and abilities, and helping you bounce back from setbacks. And doing the same things for others, you can also help build their self-efficacy too. If you want to encourage someone, focus on her self-efficacy. And we also have self-serving bias. It describes the tendency of people to attribute success to themselves and failure to outside factors. In other words, if it worked, it's because of me. If it didn't, it's because of someone or something else. Studies show that the self-serving bias happens in many different situations of our daily lives, at school, at the workplace, and even in relationships. Researchers think that it helps protect our self-esteem and reduces hurtful emotions we cannot control. Another thing is the unrealistic optimism. It is the belief that we are less likely to experience misfortune and more likely to experience positive events. But it doesn't necessarily mean that we have overly positive view of our lives. It can lead to poor decision making, and it will only make people feel better in the short run. On the other hand, we also have defensive pessimism. It is the adaptive value of anticipating problems and harnessing one's anxiety to motivate effective action. They tend to lower their expectations and mentally rehearse to prepare themselves for all the things that could go wrong.
Good day, I am Benegildo, the last reporter of Food Muslim. My topic is self-presentation. How do people manage their self-presentation? We humans are social beings. We love to harmonize with others, but sometimes we make some adjustment to the likelihood of our audience. We tend to change the way we talk, laugh, eat, the content we post on social media, and other things, depending on how we wanted to present ourselves to impress others and enhance our self-esteem and self-image. But sometimes we tend to self-destruct in order to protect our self-image from attributing failures. For example, we have this manana habit. Instead of doing our homework, we do other things such as watching movie or playing games later. When the designated time is near, we become agitated and rush things. And if the result wasn't good enough, we make some excuses. This behavior is what we call self-handicapping. Self-handicapping is protecting one's self-image with behavior that creates a handy excuse for little failure. Impressive management. As we already know that self-service bias, false modesty, and self-handicapping reveals the depth of our concerns from self-image. To verifying degrees, we actually monitor our own behavior and note how others work, then adjust our social performance to gain the desired effect. Self-presentation is the act of expressing one's and behaving ways designed to create a favorable impression or an impression that corresponds to one's ideas. One example of this is that you select the best photos of yours to post on social media. One's ideas. One example of this is that you select the best photos of yours to post on social media. Self-monitoring, on the other hand, being attuned to the way of presenting oneself in social situations and adjusting one's performance to create desired impression. This time, you're going to monitor yourself and adjust yourself to create desired impression. What does it mean to have self-control? By the definition, self-control is the ability to control one's self in particular emotion or desires or the expression of one's behavior. Self-control is like a muscle, can get tired when you use it too much. Willpower requires energy, but self-control can get stronger if it's used more. Improving self-control in one area leads to improvements in others. For example, if you have self-control of manana habit, then you have a tendency to enhance your time management skills. Postscript: Twin Truths, the perils of pride, the powers of positive thinking. This chapter offers two memorable truths: the truth of self-efficacy and the truth of serving bias. The truth concerning self-efficacy encourages us not to resign ourselves to the bad situations. No matter what happens, we must be persistent despite of failures and exert effort without being overly distracted by self-doubts. Likewise, secure self-esteem can be adopted. When we believe in our positive possibilities, we are less vulnerable to depression and we feel less insecure. These twin truths, self-efficacy and self-serving bias, remind us of what Pascal wrote 300 years ago. No single truth is ever sufficient because the world is complex. Any truth separated from its complementary truth is a half truth.
That is all.
Thank you for listening.
Stay safe and healthy.